Welcome back to CyberStationUSA.com's On the Street. Sorry about our first guest. Lars did get a hold of her, and she'll be coming on the second hour. But as I promised, now this is a young lady I met down in New York at a conference, and she was electrifying then. Her persona, her hunger to help is renowned. She's extremely well renowned. Dr. Love. Her real name is Dr. Jamie Turndorf, but Dr. Love is the way that the majority of the world knows her. She knows how to deal with relationships. She can give you, she's researched this for over 30 years, and this woman and written many, many books and been on many, many, many different stations, and is highly regarded. And listen to her if you want to find out how to listen to yourself. So, again, welcome, Dr. Love.
Hello. Nice to be with you.
Well, again, Dr. Love, this is the deal. Love is first and paramount in the world. We base our lives on it in one respect or another. We build our lives from it. Yet just here in the United States alone, I believe the ratio is 56% of people end up in divorce, and I personally believe it's unnecessary. Although that has actually just recently declined, and they're thinking that it was the weather that did it, but divorce rates are...
we're just burying our partners in the backyard, so it's not being registered as a divorce. It's just, you file a death certificate. You just fight and kill each other.
Well, let's talk about that. Relationships are definitely can be difficult, and they are something we have to work on and concentrate on, and not think of just yourself, but think about the person that you love. Because at one point, even if you're not married, but you're committed in a relationship, you've committed yourself to another individual, another human being to share your life with. And not every human being is the same. Men and women are different.
Wayne, the thing is, conflict is inevitable in our intimate relationships. We can't get around it. We're two separate people, as you say. Conflict is inevitable. But the problem is that if you don't know how to handle your conflict erodes the love that brought you together. So, millions of women throughout the world are all too familiar with the way guys distance themselves emotionally or physically whenever conflict erupts. And the technical name for this is called the demand withdrawal negative escalation cycle. I know it's a mouthful. Or husband withdrawal for short. And I'm not talking about a natural form of birth control, okay?
No, I mentioned that. And I got to be honest with you, Dr. Love. I myself, in conflicts with significant others in the past, have taken myself for a walk, tried to get my head together and tried to formulate how I want to approach whatever the conflict may be. Am I wrong in doing that?
That's not husband withdrawal. If you consciously take a walk and gather your thoughts, that's not husband withdrawal. Let me explain to you, because husband withdrawal is an involuntary response. It is the number one cause of relationship and marital conflict, divorce, and domestic violence. And actually my method, as I outline in Kiss Your Fights Goodbye, my new Hay House book, shows how to break husband withdrawal, and it's effective for resolving the chronic fighting that results from husband withdrawal. So I need to explain to you that to understand husband withdrawal, we need to understand the chemistry of conflict, okay? Heated fighting triggers a biochemical imbalance in men's bodies. And this is because men's bodies are hardwired to be hyper-reactive to stress and danger. And this programming, Wayne, dates back to prehistoric times when men were hunters and they needed to react with lightning speed to flee or to fight dangerous prey. Now, modern danger is no longer the ferocious tiger. It's the pissed-off wife or girlfriend. And when she comes at him baring her teeth and berating him with criticism, his body sees danger and involuntarily switches into autonomic nervous system arousal, or ANS arousal, and this triggers the fight-flight response. Now, most guys don't want to physically fight their partners, so they involuntarily flee instead, all right? Now, women don't know this, so when guys flee, there are three ways that all men flee from conflict. They can't help it. It's biological programming. The first way they flee is physical. They leave the room, the house, they hide out in the workshop or the basement. And the second type of fleeing is more subtle. This kind is verbal fleeing, where the guy justifies, he makes excuses, he defends himself, he's verbally fleeing or escaping responsibility. Now, the last type of fleeing is the most subtle of all. This is what I call psychic or mental fleeing. Here the guy's physically present, but he's mentally gone. He looks deaf, dumb, blind. He's wearing a no hablo inglés expression. He's drooling on his tie. Physically present, but mentally gone. So women, not knowing that these various fleeing behaviors are caused by primitive biological programming, the woman gets hurt. She thinks, he doesn't give a crap about me. He doesn't care enough to stick around and resolve our conflicts. So her hurt morphs into anger, but when she turns up the heat and blasts him with her anger, she sets off more biological fire alarms, more fleeing, and this is how all conflict in relationships is born. This is actually behind divorce and domestic violence too. So my method shows you how to break out of this cycle.
Well, Dr. Love, now you just mentioned something, and that's very interesting, nature and nurture, as it were. You're saying that these types of reactions from a man is involuntary. He may not even be conscious that he's actually doing these particular actions.
You know what? We can tell because, I've done studies, I talk about this in my book, Kiss Your Fights Goodbye, that we can actually tell that a guy's biology is going haywire in the face of relationship conflict. His blood pressure's up, his pulse rate is up, he's sweating. We have all the signs of autonomic nervous system arousal and the fight-flight response, and women are not having that. So the thing is, women don't realize when the guy does fall into these fleeing behaviors, she, without knowing it, makes it worse, triggers more biological fire alarms by blasting him. What, you're not listening to me? You want to leave me? You're ignoring me? And it gets worse and worse and worse. And this has divorce written all over it, or breakup. So my cycle shows you how to my method shows you how to break the cycle. Do you want me to talk about that?
Well, yes, absolutely, because now I'm intrigued because I'm going through my 50-plus years of life thinking about the different various relationships I've had, and I don't want that. I want to have a successful relationship and share my life with someone else, and someone I can actually enjoy their company. But I think it's important and it's imperative that if it's an actual natural deal, can I evolve? Do we have it within us?
Absolutely, we can. Here's the thing, and it's very, very simple. This is what's going to blow your mind. Remember I said a few minutes ago that heated fighting is what triggers the husband withdrawal reaction, the biochemical imbalance that leads to the withdrawal? Well, by using what I call my relationship climate control techniques, we cool the climate down. And when we cool the climate down, that literally shuts off the fight-flight response. Husband withdrawal stops. And guess what? Guys actually want to stick around and resolve their conflicts with their partners. And that's easy to do using my step-by-step conflict resolution method. That's in the second half of the book. So let me give you a few of the relationship climate control techniques. Okay, the first part of my book shows you how to cool it down. Second part, okay, now he's cool, he's not withdrawing, now we'll resolve our conflicts. So the first way to cool it down is we want to identify and eliminate what I call our fight traps. Those are those faulty, dysfunctional fighting tactics that we all use that heat up the climate, cause more withdrawal behaviors. And I break fight traps into two categories, open and secret warfare. Open warfare, those are those direct forms of acted out anger, like I'm calling you names, character assassination, guilt tripping, I told you so, paybacks. Those are the things where I'm in your face and I'm sticking it to you, okay? Now, secret warfare are the indirect expressions of anger, but they still heat the climate all the same. I forgot, recruiting allies, silent treatment, things like that. So the point to remember is whether you're using open or secret warfare, it doesn't matter. Heats the climate, causes more chemical imbalance, more husband withdrawal, and more fighting. So whatever you say or do, boomerangs back on you. And while it may feel good to get your rocks off in the moment, on the rocks is where your relationship is going to end up if you don't ditch your fight traps.
Wow.
Okay?
Wow. Where were you 40 years ago, kid? I could have used you, Dr. Love. Let me tell you. I would have had a better life.
No, only my hairdresser knows for sure how old I am. Now, let's see. Where was I 40 years ago? Well, I wasn't a shrink yet.
No, but you obviously had an interest in human existence, and something clicked your curiosity to wanting to find out why. So obviously you spent the majority of your adult life trying to research and find this out.
Absolutely. Well, because first of all, they say shrinks become shrinks because they grew up in dysfunctional families. And I always say that I earned a PhD in conflict resolution when I was still in diapers, and I think I have to spell that P-E-E-H-D, you know? Diapers, PhD, get it? So I was mediating my parents' fights when I was just a young child. You know, but that's not the real reason I went into this. I went into this work because I was born 3 months early and spent the first 3 months alone in the hospital. And a psychic told me recently that I made a decision then to develop this Dr. Love ministry because I wanted to connect souls. I didn't want anybody to feel the pain of disconnection that I felt in that hospital alone. So maybe it's a combo of both.
Wow. Wow, yeah. That's almost spooky, Dr. Love. But again, these are the nucleus of society is in the relationships between people. And it's more complex than I think people actually think of it as. And we actually have to...
It's not
go ahead.
It's not so hard. Well, I know what you're saying, that there are layers and layers and layers, but the thing is, if we just get down to basics, cool down what you're doing, cool down your climate, cool down the communications. You can't believe how simple it is to resolve our conflicts once we cool it down, because then we can go on to communicate in a way that's clear and calm. We can listen, we can understand. Want me to tell you another way to cool the climate?
Please, I beg you.
Oh, baby, I love being begged. All right. Please, Dr. Love. All right, so the second way we cool the climate down is to train your brain to fight for you, not against you. Now, what do I mean by this? When we get into intimate relationships, we fall into something I call the echo process. And this is a negative cognitive distortion that actually makes us hear our parents talking to us when we speak with our partners. Now, obviously, when you hear your parents talking, you are going to hear negative things coming at you, and that's going to heat the climate. Here's a good example. Tuesday night, chicken night, right? The wife puts down a plate of chicken in front of the husband. The husband says, "Oh no, not chicken night again already." She freaks on him. "What, you don't like my chicken? Well, you can go cook for yourself. Stuff my chicken." Well, the guy looks at her like, "What?" He just meant he couldn't believe how fast time flies. It's Tuesday again. But why did she freak? Because through her echo process, she heard her critical parent telling her that her chicken recipe stinks. So to break this process, I have a simple little 5-step plan. You hold your horses, and then step 2, you take a step back in time, and then step 3, you take a hard look at reality. You compare what's being said by your partner with what you were told as a kid, right? Gee, who put me down then? And is it possible I might be misreading my partner? And then step 4, check out your suspicions. If there's even a 1% chance that you might be wrong, ask, "Did you not like my chicken?" And then the husband can say, "No, baby, I love all your parts. I love your breast, your thigh," right? And then step 5, smooth any ruffled feathers, and in this case, chicken feathers. So that's the second way.
Dr. Love, let me ask you this question. Again, in researching, and I had the privilege of talking to Dr. Love in New York a little bit ago, and she's all that in a bag of chips. But one of the statements I noticed in your promos and reading through your stuff is wondering how stripping solves relationship conflicts. And I was talking to Lars Christensen prior to having you on, and I made mention of that, and I'm thinking, I don't think I'm going to be focusing on arguing with a woman if she's standing there naked before me.
No, baby, we're not talking about stripping and getting naked. No, that's not what we're talking about here.
Well, I'm a guy. Come on. Give me some testosterone here, lady.
Keep it in your pants. We're not going there. I'm sorry. So, here's how stripping works. First of all, This is the way we cool the climate.
Sure.
We have to identify and heal what I call old scars, okay? Now, the old scars aren't war wounds. They're the old scars we carry from childhood, and they heat the climate, and they fuel our fights, okay? So the way they fuel our fights is, first of all, they create an intensification, okay? We're always comparing associating present-day events with the wounds we suffered as kids. I call this the emotional lake effect, okay? Just as a storm picks up intensity as it gathers moisture in its sweep across the Great Lakes, our brains dip into the reservoir of our unconscious, and they make us emotionally remember past hurts from childhood. And so fireworks are going off inside us over a small offense. The unconscious associations are adding fuel to our fire, and we're drowning in feelings from past hurts. But we don't know it. We're having a disproportionately intense reaction. We don't realize that an old scar is fueling our fire. So here's an example of this. Husband and wife are out to dinner, right? And he keeps checking his watch. Finally, she freaks. What's the matter with you? You can't wait to get rid of me? After the check, let's go home. Why is she reacting that way? Because she was unconsciously associating back to the time when she grew up with a father who never had time for her. Meanwhile, the husband's just looking at her, I'm watching my wristwatch to make sure I feed the meter on time, and now you're handing me a fine, okay? So the problem is that when old scars are activated, couples don't know it, and they are filled with intense feelings, and here's the second clue that you're in the midst of an old scar. You can't shake the feeling. And you can't shake the feeling because the old scar, the association back to it, is happening not through your own conscious awareness. You don't know where your feelings are coming from. You can't wrap your brain around it and resolve it, so you're just stuck with all these intense feelings you can't shake. It heats the climate, causes more ANS arousal and more fighting. So how do we get down to the core issue? Forgetting the baseball bat that got the thing rolling, or he's glued to the TV, or the garbage is in the heap. How do we get to the real old scar that is actually beneath our overt issue? Here's where stripping comes in. And I'm not talking about getting naked. I'm talking about stripping away the fight content to uncover the old scar that lurks beneath. And to do this, I show you in Kiss Your Fights Goodbye how to draw what I call a fight map. And here you're stripping away the overt content, the who did what and who said what, and you're just charting the emotional course of the fight. And you're identifying what you feel now, when you felt this way as a kid, what was going on when you were a kid, who was doing what to you, and then here's the most important thing. You identify your happy ending, what you needed and wanted from your parent that you didn't get as a kid. And when you talk about this with your partner, you are now fulfilling the most divine purpose of our intimate relationship. You are helping each other to heal your old wounds from childhood. And when you do, the climate cools. Old scars heal, the climate cools. Now you can go on to resolve your conflicts very simply using my step-by-step plan. And I talk about that in the past.
Dr. Love, just saying this is actually bringing back some personal information about me. And I'm going to say this on the air because, if I don't expose my own issues, how can I ever expect someone else to talk about theirs? Before I was at the age of 5, my father would abuse me, beat me bloody, kick me under the kitchen table and tell me I was a useless eater and that I would never amount to anything. And he was my hero. And I had difficulties in accepting someone's affection for me, and I always believed it was because the person I thought the highest of said I was a nothing, so I looked to achieve that being worthless, not to get close to somebody.
I get it.
Would that make sense to you?
It does, and what also makes sense to me is here's how our old scars screw us. Additionally, they make us choose partners who emotionally resemble the parent that hurt us or abused us, so you end up choosing an abuser, didn't you? Somebody who mistreated you?
Well, no, strong-willed people perhaps, but not abusing. And Dr. Love, I have 3 sons. Well, they're 3 men right now, but I drew a line. I said I would never raise a hand or speak ill to my children. I would always try to talk to them and be supportive, and I've never raised a hand to my children. I've never tried to be negative about them. I've debated them on issues, but I've respected their points of view and explained my points of view. And because of that, I have a very close and endearing relationship with my sons.
So check it out. Also, by you treating your son in a way that is so loving and supportive, you ended up, without knowing it, healing your own old scar. Because when we treat others our children and our spouses the way we wished we had been treated, it feels like we're giving the gift to ourselves, and we actually bring healing to ourselves. So that's what you did intuitively, Wayne, and that was very brilliant.
Inadvertently, Doctor, I swear to you, it was just something that I remember how much it hurt from being hurt by my hero, and I was never going to do that to my sons, never.
Well, I'm in great admiration of you, because usually when people are abused, they become abusers. That is more common. What you did was more uncommon.
Yeah, go figure. I'm just a dope Italian broadcaster out of Boston. But, I don't mean to be self-deprecating. It's just that I realized, I don't know why I had that personal epiphany, but I told myself that when I had children, I'd be supportive for them and know that they could always depend on me and know that I would always be there for them. So maybe, again, mentally, I was self-analyzing, trying to fix myself inadvertently.
That's what you were doing. So you were already healing your old scars, not by repeating them, which most people do. They repeat them and relive them in their relationships and marriages. You healed it by being a better parent. So that's wonderful. So, and what's really, really wonderful about my method here is that as I help people to do the old scar healing through their relationship, and they bring each other the kind of parenting. And yes, we need to be healing parenting figures, even for our partners and our spouses. As we do, the whole relationship shifts, and we create an environment of love and support. So instead of turning our cannons on the partner who is reminding us of the parent who let us down and pounding on the partner because, now I'm going to give it to you the way I couldn't give it to my parent. I'm going to let you heal me the way my parent didn't. And then you bring this connection and this love out so that instead of becoming enemies, you actually turn your conflict into connection, which is what I show you how to do in Kiss Your Fights Goodbye. And the more you resolve your conflicts and the more you work with each other in this healing way, the more your love outshines anything else, and your relationship actually grows stronger and more passionate as the years go by.
Dr. Love can be found, ladies and gentlemen. I have a list, and you've noticed that I posted all the links to find out a little bit more about Dr. Love, where she can be found. Her book, again, as she mentioned, Kiss Your Fights Goodbye. I'm telling you, folks, you want to have a good life. You want to find someone you love and love them back and reap the rewards of living, because that's what we have. Everybody is a teacher that you may learn from, and you're the teacher to all that they may learn something from you. And Dr. Love, I'm grateful that you've come on the street. And Dr. Love has also promised that she'll come back this summer, where she's going to be releasing another book, and we'll talk about that as well then. But I can tell, Dr. Love, you and I are going to be pals forever.
Oh, you're such a doll. I'm so glad that we reconnected, and it's just been my pleasure being with you tonight, and I look forward to talking with you again.
I give you my word, Dr. Love, as a former Boy Scout, I'm a man of my word. I will not let you down, because I think talking to a person like you makes us all better people indeed. And thank you for taking the time and sharing your tips. Get Dr. Love's books. Check out her websites. Again, I'll reiterate them as the show goes through. Plus, you can see them on my website and my Facebook page. They're all there. She's worth investigating. If you're living life and you want to live life well, check out this woman's research and what she's done. She talks to you like a human being, not as a patient, but as an equal. And Dr. Love, you're the best to me, lady.
Oh, I'm so glad that we're pals. So you take care, dear guy, okay?
Thanks, Dr. Love. I appreciate you taking the time to come on the street.